The house had grown used to its own emptiness. Every corner carried a memory. Every shelf a ghost of laughter long gone. The dining table, once too small to hold all the plates and the chatter of children, now stood like a museum exhibit, polished, untouched, and waiting for voices that would never return. I had lived in that silence for 15 years. 15 years of listening to clocks tick louder than conversations. 15 years of dinners eaten with only the hum of the refrigerator for company. 15 years of birthdays uncelebrated, of anniversaries ignored, of holidays marked not by festivities, but by the sound of fireworks outside a window I never opened. It wasn't always this way. Once I had known love. A husband whose laugh filled rooms, whose hand on mine steadied the world. We built a life together, piece by piece, sometimes fighting, often struggling, but always together. Then came the children, and my world expanded into a kaleidoscope of color. Crayons on the walls, late-night fevers, soothed with lullabies, mornings that smelled of pancakes and spilled milk. But love has a cruel way of ending. My husband's absence arrived like a thunderstorm that never left. Whether through fate, death, or betrayal, it doesn't matter now. The result was the same. I was left with an empty bed and a heart that echoed with loss. At first, I told myself the loneliness was temporary. The children were still around, still filling the space with their own noise. But as they grew, as they built lives of their own, the silence became permanent. I didn't resent them for leaving. It was their right. Still, each farewell carved into me like stone. So I learned to make peace with solitude. I planted flowers in the garden, though I often forgot to water them. I collected books, but rarely made it past the first chapter. I went for walks through the park, pretending not to notice the couples on benches holding hands, or the grandparents with grandchildren who looked at them with unfiltered adoration. 15 years of this routine dulled me into a shadow of who I once was. And then he came. It was a spring afternoon when I first met Daniel. The air smelled of earth after rain, the sky still heavy with clouds that threatened more. I had gone to the library, a place I still visited, though most of the books I borrowed ended up sitting unopened by my bed. That day, a book slipped from the shelf above me, falling with a heavy thud. I bent down, startled, and so did another pair of hands. Our fingers touched. I looked up into eyes the color of storm clouds, kind yet searching. His hair was graying, his face marked with lines that spoke of both laughter and sorrow. He smiled in that awkward way strangers do when caught in the act of simple kindness. "Sorry," he said, picking up the book. "Gravity doesn't seem to like you." I laughed an unsteady, unused laugh and shook my head. Or maybe he just wants me to read something for once. He handed me the book. Our hands lingered for a second longer than necessary. That was how it began. At first, it was small. Casual meetings in the library, accidental hellos in the park. We started talking about books, about music, about the loneliness neither of us dared to admit outright. He was a widower, too. His wife had passed years ago, leaving him with an ache he tried to mask with politeness and routine. "I used to think grief was a river," he said once as we walked beneath the budding cherry trees. You wade through it, and eventually you reach the shore. But it's not like that, is it? It's the sea, endless. Some days calm, some days storming, but always there. His words pierced through me. For the first time in years, I felt understood, not just heard, but seen. Weeks turned into months. Our conversations grew deeper. Dinners at small cafes replaced library chats. Walks turned into late-night phone calls. He began to weave himself into the fabric of my days, gently, patiently, as though afraid to break me. And slowly, something inside me stirred back to life. I found myself smiling more, laughing at things I once ignored. The house no longer felt as empty. His presence lingered in the air even when he wasn't there. I began to imagine a future again, a future not defined by silence, but by companionship. And when he asked me, on a quiet evening by the river, to marry him, my heart said yes before my voice could. But even as joy returned, shadows remained. My children, they never embraced him. At best, they were polite. At worst, cold. They visited less frequently, their conversations shorter, laced with judgment. My daughter, in particular, carried a sharpness in her eyes whenever Daniel was near. She never said it outright, but the words hovered unspoken. How dare you move on? How dare you replace Dad? I try to bridge the distance. I try to reassure them. But nothing softened their stance. And yet I thought time would heal. I believed that if they saw me happy, if they saw me glowing with life again, they would understand. I was wrong. The day of the wedding approached like dawn after a long night. My dress hung in the closet, delicate lace that felt too beautiful for someone my age. Daniel and I planned something simple, a small ceremony in the chapel, nothing extravagant, just love declared before God and the handful of people who mattered. I dreamed of my children walking me down the aisle, of seeing their smiles from the front row. After 15 years of loneliness, I thought this day would stitch us together again. But the morning of the wedding, the first cracks appeared. A phone call unanswered, a message left unread. By noon, the whispers reached me. My entire family had chosen to attend my son-in-law's birthday party instead. Every seat reserved for them at the chapel sat empty. Every flower I had chosen for them to see wilted under the weight of their absence. And just as I steadied myself, just as the music began to play, just as I placed my trembling hand on the edge of the chapel doors, my phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, "Don't get married. Get out of there. We need to talk urgently." The phone slipped in my hand. My heart pounded against my ribs. The doors hadn't opened yet. Daniel was waiting at the altar. The guests who did come were rising to their feet. The world hung on the edge of that single message. I stared at the words again, my daughter's plea burning into my eyes. "Don't get married. Get out of there. We need to talk urgently." I had been alone for 15 years. I had finally found love again. And now, on the very threshold of happiness, I was being asked to choose between my heart and my blood, between a future I longed for and a past that refused to let me go. The music swelled. The doors creaked and my soul trembled.